All right. So thank you, Tim. We are making this special session for all of the members in Latin America so you can understand better how to use the data that we're getting from Cometrics and all the reporting that you do. And we have a webinar on how to do it if you're interested later. But today we have a special guest, which is Tim Fisher, or economist at HARDI, who's going to explain a little bit on how to use this data, especially sales per employee and inventory to sales ratio, and how that can help you to make better decisions as a distributor. Tim, what can you say about that?
Thanks, Heath. Yeah, I think especially if you are a distributor operating in LATAM or anywhere outside of the US where that's the bulk of the participation, you're going to want to lean heavily on ratios because those are what's going to translate cross-border a little bit more than sales or growth rates will. And so in that regard, I would be looking a lot at sales per employee and sales to inventory ratios. I think sales per employee, it speaks to the productivity of your workforce. So if you compare where you're at relative to what that median or average is versus the upper quartile or lower quartile, you can get a sense for how some of these other companies are operating, those that maybe are getting more out of their employees, they're operating a little bit more lean, and who are able to optimize their workforce better. I think that is a great way to benchmark over time how your productivity compares and whether or not it's actually improving. I think, Guy, you and I were talking a little bit before this about how, maybe the importance of participating regularly with this. Well, this is an excellent way to actually track how that productivity is changing with time. Are you actually improving as a business? You may do so informally, but if you only are aware of how your own business is improving and you don't know how the broader region or your competitors might be improving, you're losing share. And that's going to be it's going to create problems for you down the road. So I think sales per employee is a great one. And obviously sales inventory ratio is great too, especially if you're trying to optimize your inventory levels relative to sales. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that, Guy, before I wax
certainly in Latin America, supply chain is a little bit more complex than in the US. And sometimes we do import a lot more from China and further places than the US does. So it's important that we see exactly what that inventory level is. And if it's a little bit higher than the US, we want to see normally how that trends. And we want to compare ourselves with our peers, not necessarily with somebody in another market, even though we can take into consideration that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. And that's the other part of this too, is sales to inventory ratio is very seasonal. So especially in the US, you're going to see that sales to inventory ratio get compressed during the shoulder seasons and the lead up to peak cooling season or heating season as distributors bring on more inventory. Well, if you don't know necessarily what the optimal level of inventory is, and of course we can debate at a different time what is optimal in this regard, but being able to actually understand the amount of inventory others have in hand relative to their sales should give you a sense for how competitors and the broader market is actually thinking about this. So if you, for example, have a sales inventory ratio that is a half a point or a full point below what the median or the average is, okay, well, potentially you're a little overweight, or maybe your sales are just not keeping up with what the region is. So it gives you information in a couple of ways, and a better sense of how you can actually maybe streamline your inventory or guard yourself against supply chain risks. In general, it's just another way of trying to optimize your business and trying to improve your profitability.
Perfect. Love it. Thank you so much, Tim. I hope you all take advantage of the reporting. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Steve.